You can start now, Akshat.
Thank you, Subha. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Aksai-Chin, and I'm currently a research assistant at the Institute of Chinese Studies, New Delhi. It is a matter of great pleasure to extend a warm and humble welcome to all to another edition of ICS's weekly Wednesday seminar, titled PLA Plan to Construct a Railway Line Along Aksai-Chin Road linking Xinjiang with Tibet, Implications for Indian Security. In recent years, the People's Republic of China has embarked on an ambitious mission to achieve preeminence in both global military and economic arenas by the mid-21st century, with the United States being relegated to a secondary role and India emerging as the third major global power. This ambitious mission hinges on an intensified commitment to economic expansion and an extensive infrastructure development in the Indo-Pacific region, primarily aimed at securing a stable supply of essential oil resources. Nonetheless, it faces numerous substantial challenges, including long-standing and contentious disputes with Taiwan, India, Japan, and South Korea. India's main concerns with China revolve around the dispute over the McMahon Line and the illegal occupation of Aksai-Chin since the 1950s. Recent reports indicate China's construction of a railway line along the Aksai-Chin Road, which raises significant implications for India's security on the northern borders. The talk discusses and analyzes these implications in detail and also assesses India's strategic options within this intricate geopolitical landscape. The speaker for today's session is Colonel Virendra Sahai Verma, who is an honorary fellow, Institute of Chinese Studies, New Delhi. He served in the Indian Army for 35 years. He is the Vice President of the India-Pakistan Soldiers Initiative for Peace and a member of several organizations, including the International Study Association, MPIDSA, and International Intelligence Ethics Association. Besides presenting several papers at seminars, Colonel Verma has also published numerous articles on issues pertaining to India-China relations, Tibet, border studies, Sino-Pakistan relations, role of soldiers in peacemaking, and maritime security. Today's session shall be chaired by Mr. M.V. Rappai. Mr. Rappai is a Delhi-based security analyst specializing in Asian strategic issues and an honorary fellow at the Institute of Chinese Studies, New Delhi. He worked with the Ministry of Defense, Government of India, and later joined the MPIDSA as a research fellow. He has published chapters in books and articles in reputed journals and newspapers. Today's session, we also have the print as our media partner. Before I hand over to the chair, I would like to ask all participants to follow a few housekeeping rules. All participants shall be muted during the session. Questions can be posted in the chat box. Please do include your name and affiliation when you post your questions. Alternatively, you may use the raise your hand option during the interactive session. You shall then be called upon to unmute yourself. I shall now hand over to the chair. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Akshat. Welcome to all. And I have pleasure to welcoming an old colleague and a friend, Colonel Verma. So the topic we are discussing, I think he has a lot of experience and he has dealt with these issues. So I will not get into today's discussion, the topic, the topic of the discussion, the construction of the railways alone. But I think we are at a juncture to keep understanding the security implications for India in the coming future, because there are a lot of issues. One is after the ongoing war in Ukraine, how that is going to affect all the future wars, and what will be PLA's strategy in the future. This war is going on for 1 year and almost 7 months, and I think it is going to a very grinding stalemate, because till now we are not seeing any major breakthroughs. So each army, how it fights, that matters. Therefore, we need a very more closer study of PLA, because the PLA is its relations with the Communist Party of China. That I think we have a lot of information now, but still it needs a lot more research and understanding from the strategic community in India. The problem with our thinking, the long-term study, I think sometimes we confuse with the immediate political goals of the parties involved, and we lack. I don't say that we have a lot of people who studied China and involved in China, but is it sufficient to understand the long-term implications or the security aspects, or are we more doing a firefighting on a day-to-day basis? I think that we have to think seriously and understand the future intentions of China and PLA's future role in their warfare, and what will be the things they will be adopting from the ongoing war. For example, if one looked at the Russian war fighting, their methods, till now they could withhold the Ukraine army due to innovative use of technology, both old and new. Nobody thought of Russia mining the borders in a manner which is not used earlier. So therefore the surprise element in war, or that can change a lot of the future of the future implications for the security of all countries. So I think we need to understand and look at what will be the changes, what will be the strategy adopted by PLA, and how the roads or the infrastructure facilities it is making around it is going to help it. I think we have Colonel Verma, who actually traveled a lot and who understand the terrain. He will explain further to us. Thank you. Over to Vermaji. Yeah, Colonel, you can speak.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and most welcome to this Wednesday seminar. Subject of my talk today is reported PLA plan to construct a railway line along Aksai-Chin Road in Ladakh, linking Xinjiang with Tibet. Implications to Indian security. Before I come to the subject proper, I'll explain with the help of a map. In front of map is Pakistan on the left-hand side, Jammu and Kashmir, all these places are highlighted. Tibet and China are on right-hand side. The Aksai-Chin Plateau is highlighted with orange color. The black line is the Aksai-Chin Road, which has been constructed by PLA in middle 1950s. Subject of talk today is the PLA is constructing a railway line along this Aksai-Chin Road. What are the implications of construction of this railway line along the road which links western province of Xinjiang with Tibet? This is what we are going to discuss today. Some photographs of Aksai-Chin Road to make you familiar with the terrain of the area. The Aksai-Chin Road is passing through this desert high altitude region or Aksai-Chin. This area Nehru had described as where not even a blade of grass grows. When Nehru stated this after China had occupied Aksai-Chin, that not a blade of grass grows, one of the leaders in the opposition, Mr. Lohiya, he had remarked, I remember, he had remarked in Parliament, Panditji, even on your head, nothing grows. And there was so much of laughter in Parliament. In fact, in Parliament those days, it was all laughter and jokes, which situation unfortunately is not as much as used to be. This is photo of Aksai-Chin Road. Again, same road in altitude, barren terrain. Before I come to the subject proper, it would be appropriate to spend few minutes on global landscape, which is available now, and deterrence in Taiwan is falling. In August 2022, a visit to Taiwan by US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi led the worst cross-strait crisis in the quarter century. China is dispatching its ships around the island. Months after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine has reminded everyone that a major war is possible. Taiwan crisis made the prospect that a China attack on Taiwan could trigger conflict between the world's two topmost powers. Secretary of State Blinken and other officials are predicting that trouble might start even sooner. President Biden has recently publicly affirmed 4 times that US would come to Taiwan's aid if it were attacked. US and its friends are struggling to build that structure in the limited time they may have left. Our UK relationship with China has not reached a nadir as US-China has. These inputs are from an essay in Foreign Policy Journal of US dated 12th September. The People's Republic of China has reportedly made a goal to become the #1 military and economic power by the middle of this century. India and China have outstanding border issues since middle of 1950s. The main issue with China are conflict with recognition of McMahon Line and illegal occupation of Aksai-Chin. China is in occupation of Aksai-Chin, which is in India's own territory. In middle of 1950s, China had built Aksai-Chin Road, linking Xinjiang with Tibet, which led to Sino-India War in 1962. Arunachal Pradesh is not negotiable. People of the state have quite well adopted to democratic traditions and economic progress of the state. People follow Tibetan Buddhism. Presence of Dalai Lama in India has great positive influence along Sino-Indian border. A railway line along the Aksai-Chin Road, which is highlighted by black line, has implications for security of our northern borders as follows. It will enable PLA to switch forces from Xinjiang to Tibet and vice versa, thus multiplying military capability at northern borders of India. Similar railway project could be built by China at northern borders of Nepal, Sikkim, and Arunachal Pradesh. It is a well-known fact that railways are the best mode for the mass mobilization of troops, guns, and tanks. Hence the importance of railway line, besides the road which has been existing since 1955 or so. Along with strengthening infrastructure along India's northern borders, China is also extending military presence in Indian Ocean region. Out of 6 naval aircraft carriers which PRC is acquiring, 1 might be deployed in Indian Ocean region as per sources available. China is deficient of oil to achieve ambitions of number 2 military and economic power. Limitation is that oil has to be imported from West Asia and transported through Indian Ocean region, which India has capability to dominate. China is also building China-Pakistan economic corridor with the help of its all-weather friend Pakistan. This route enables PRC to import oil from West Asia through Arabian Sea. However, this option is limited to western regions of China due to long distance to eastern border by land. India is strengthening infrastructure along northern borders, especially in narrow Chumbi Valley, which is known as the Chicken Neck. What are the limitations for China? Taiwan is becoming a hot issue between USA and PRC. Recent visit of Secretary of State of USA to Taiwan and reaction of China indicate the same. India's domination of Indian Ocean region, especially with fortress of Andaman and Nicobar Islands, is a strategic asset for India. High altitude of airfields in Tibet limit road and range carrying capabilities of fighter aircrafts from Tibet. On the other hand, Indian airfields along northern borders are at low altitudes, and with full load, fighter aircraft can cover most of the China. Another significant point in favor of India is the presence of His Holiness in India and pro-Indian population of Tibetans is a positive factor in border regions facing China. I have been to Tibet few years back, and I have seen myself that in spite of severe restrictions imposed on Tibetans, but the respect and the which His Holiness Dalai Lama enjoys in Tibet is very, very high. People do not carry His Holiness photographs in their pockets. They don't display in their houses. When I had gone to Tibet a few years back, but they still, sometimes they conceal photographs in their body, sometimes they conceal in their houses, but respect for His Holiness in Tibet is unsurpassable. Dalai Lama is now 86-year-old, and serious thinking is required to alternative Buddhist leadership to continue favorable influence on Indian border people and Tibetans. Resolving issues with China. This is my own presentation and my own view, my personal view. Nothing official about it, it's my own personal view. While border issue at Arunachal Pradesh seems to be not negotiable, at Aksai-Chin, give and take could be done. We cannot expect China vacate and hand over the snow desert to India. However, I personally feel that negotiations are possible to bargain Aksai-Chin Road portion in occupation by China and India to get back the southern part of Aksai-Chin. Southern part, there is a market, there is a clear range in the western part of Aksai-Chin, Aksat range. Along that range, if Aksai-Chin could be divided, major portion, road portion going to China and the southern portion given back to India. Access to Karakoram Pass will remain with us. This is of vital strategic importance. The 18,000 feet Karakoram Pass used to be the main trade route between Ladakh and Xinjiang. People in Ladakh still remember the days when they used to cross Karakoram and go to Xinjiang, and traders from Xinjiang region used to come to Ladakh. But in 1959, 1950, when the Chinese have taken over Xinjiang, the Karakoram Pass, there is no trade now through Karakoram Pass after 1959. We may bargain with China to leave southern part of Aksai-Chin back to India. This southern part I have shown through green line, and this is called Ladakh range, east to west Ladakh range. In the northern part of Ladakh range with yellow line is the Aksai-Chin Road, along with China is constructing a railway line. And the south of yellow green line could be dividing line, and this border, this major border issue in this area can be resolved. And this good spirit, when it prevails, can also lead to solving many problems in other parts of India, mainly Arunachal Pradesh. However, on Arunachal Pradesh, it appears to be non-negotiable because people have already experienced the democracy and development. Trade through Karakoram Pass, which has been stalled since 1949, should be resumed. People of Ladakh and Xinjiang would be very happy to resume ancient trade with Xinjiang. Southern part of Aksai-Chin is of strategic importance to India to maintain access to Karakoram. Trade through Karakoram Pass, which has been stalled since 1949, should be resumed. People of Ladakh and Xinjiang would be glad to resume ancient trade with their adjoining state. In conclusion, I would mention PLA plan to construct a railway line along Aksai-Chin Road in Ladakh, linking Xinjiang with Tibet. It would require a review of threat posture from north and northwest. This construction of railway line would require review of threat posture from north and northwest. Railway line will multiply PLA's military capability at the northern borders of India. China is also extending its military presence in Indian Ocean region by acquiring 6 naval aircraft carriers, of which 1 or more may be deployed in this region. India should capitalize domination of Indian Ocean region. India has capability to achieve air superiority across northern borders because all our military airfields are at low altitudes and can reach targets up to the eastern borders of China, where the major cities are located. At the same time, planned railway line from Himachal Pradesh to Leh should be expedited to maintain a military garrison in Ladakh if Kargil is blocked by the Pakistan Army. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Verma. It was not a very short, but it was comparatively short, and a lot of things you brought in for discussion. I think we will listen first to the other people, then I think you can give the reply. I would request that Akshat, if any questions are available or if any raised hands, please tell me.
Certainly, sir. So there do not seem to be any questions in the chat box as of now.
Yeah,
I
think
do have.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
If somebody raised a question, or otherwise I will just take 2 minutes.
Certainly, sir. I will inform you once we have the raised hand or the question in the chat.
Yeah. Colonel Verma brought in a lot of future issues, but I am not very sure all is possible in the RAM, because it depends a lot on India's future developments and availability of budget and other aspects, and how the Indian Army is going to develop. I think we are at a crossroads for the new programs and the new way of war. We need a lot more developments, and it will take time. But anyway, we are not talking here of the war or immediate war, but the future negotiations. To negotiate, we need at least to negotiate from a position of strength. So I hope Colonel Verma will take into account the aspects which is required to acquire that strength. Then only we can come to the negotiating positions. And I am sure there are other people who done a lot of negotiation with China. I think they can make us understand more about the possibilities. And the world situation, it is never a static situation. Taiwan, of course, I understand what is going on in Taiwan currently, but I don't think neither China nor US is in a hurry to fight over Taiwan. So let us wait and see what are the developments. Yeah. I think if any questions, Akshat, or
Not yet, sir. Not as of now. So there is one question that, if I may raise one. It is it is a question to Colonel Verma. It states that, so you mentioned that the Indian Air Force can have air superiority, given that isn't China's rail line also vulnerable to precision airstrikes by the Indian Air Force?
yeah, Colonel Verma, you can answer.
Yes. Most of the PLA airfields in Tibet are in high altitude. Tibet, the average height is 12,000 feet. When the aircraft takes off from the height of 12,000 feet or more, the load carrying capacity is limited. Oxygen is less, and while taking off, much more force is required, much more power is required. Because of this, they can carry limited warloads. Whereas our airfields in our northern states like Assam, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, all airfields are in low altitude, in plains. Fighter aircrafts can take off from low airfields, can go to any distance and return back. There is no limitation in load carrying because the main power is required while taking off, which is in low altitude, whereas in Tibet, it is high altitude airfields and the load carrying capacity is reduced. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. But the nature of war has undergone a lot of change. And of course, air power superiority will be added this thing, but I think we need to look at the future of PLA in a little more detailed manner, Colonel. Actually, any more questions are there?
So we are still waiting on other questions. So if you would like to add more to today's discussion, we would be grateful, sir. So we do have, we just received one question from Mr. Keshav Padmanabhan. He is from the print, and he asks, recently there have been reports that almost 30% of our army has been trained for internal insurgency and policing over open warfare. Given the change in the training regime, how effective would the Indian Army be at the highlands in Ladakh?
Yeah, I think Colonel Verma can answer that.
Indian Army, since very long, has been discharging both roles of external threat and internal security quite well. As far as internal threat is concerned, we also are assisted by local administration, police, and other paramilitary forces. In fact, they have much main role for internal security. Then army comes there on as a to help them in running the administration. So there is no issue. These roles are well defined and have been going on for so many years and decades. Thank you.
Yeah, Ashit.
Yes, sir. So we have a question from Mr. Ashok Kantha. So he thanks Colonel Sahai for his. Just 1 second, sir.
Yeah, I think Ambassador Kanda can ask the question directly.
Yes, sir.
It's available on.
So would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question? Should I read it out?
Why don't you read it out?
Yeah, I think then do it.
Colonel Sahai, Mr. Kantha thanks you for highlighting the Chinese plans to construct a railway line from Shigatse in Tibet and run northwest along the Nepal border before cutting north through Aksai-Chin and ending in Khotan in Xinjiang. The railway line will broadly follow the course of the G219 highway. The issue hasn't received enough attention in our strategic discourse. As for your suggestion on a partial boundary settlement in the western sector with India, regaining part of Aksai-Chin, Mr. Kantha is not at all optimistic. China is actively preventing patrolling by Indian troops and grazing by Indian herdsmen to areas they had traditionally visited, let alone showing any inclination to concede part of Aksai-Chin to India. So he requests for your comments, please. Thank you.
Yeah, Colonel Verma.
Sir, since I'm focusing on the strategic interest of China, which is to maintain the road, Aksai-Chin Road, construct the railway line, and the area around. The southern part of Aksai-Chin, which would not have as much strategic significance to China, whereas it will help us in expanding our route to Karakoram Pass, which is a narrow wedge. And if we get more elbow room in our approach to Karakoram Pass, which is a strategic point, this elbow room would help in defense of the Karakoram Pass and the access to Karakoram Pass. At present, it is a narrow wedge where on one side is Pakistan, other side is Aksai-Chin, China. So this is just a suggestion. It would help in strengthening access to Karakoram Pass and as well as retain vital road portion or rail portion with China.
Yeah, but Colonel Verma, point is that China is not even inclined to allow us to keep patrolling areas we had been patrolling until early 2020. In fact, they're making even issues relating to clarification line of actual control a matter involving sovereignty and territorial integrity of China. Against that backdrop, and given the negotiating position that the largest area of dispute is in eastern sector, and that unless India were to make meaningful adjustments in eastern sector, as you pointed out, that is non-negotiable from our point of view, they're not prepared to make any concessions in western sector. I mean, that position is fairly well known. That's not a secret position. Given these two developments, China's traditional position, which they have taken since 1985, on what kind of packet settlement they can live with, to what they have done recently in terms of upsetting, status quo in eastern Ladakh. And if I may add one more point, their complete unwillingness to accommodate our strategic interests. Why do we think that they will give us more room for maneuver, more strategic space in eastern Ladakh? That may be our objective, but the Chinese, at least as far as I can read China, we don't see any indication of Chinese readiness to concede any space to India in Aksai-Chin, especially as part of a partial settlement, limited to western sector alone. That's my assessment of of where things stand today. If China talks of partial settlement, so-called low-hanging fruits, they talk only of Sikkim sector, not even middle sector, certainly not western sector. So I don't see any realistic possibility of China changing its negotiating position so drastically, so dramatically anytime soon. That's the only point I wanted to make.
Thank you, Ambassador Kanda, for clarifying that. I agree with you that unless we are in a position of strength, I don't think China have no reason to change itself in the near future. Akshay, there are two questions. I don't know you saw it in the chat box. I think you can put them to Colonel Verma so he can answer.
Certainly, sir. So we have a question from Mr. Amit Dopra. He is a research intern at the Institute of Chinese Studies. He asks, in the wake of the Galwan issue, India launched Operation Snow Leopard to occupy strategic positions. It gave a bargaining chip to the Indian side, which was then lost in creating buffer zones. He asks, what does the Indian side have today to make a good bargain with the Chinese?
Yeah, Colonel Verma, you can answer.
Actually, to be frank, I have not studied this part, so I won't be able to answer.
Actually, another question by Amit Dogra. Did you mention it to Colonel Verma?
Yes, sir. This was the question. So we have another question by Mr. Prabhat Kumar. Would you like me to read it out?
Yeah, you read it out, please.
Correct. So Mr. Prabhat Kumar asks, China and India have hardly missed anything in the last 70 years by not trading through the Karakoram Pass. Why to try and change the situation by conceding the strategically important northern parts of Aksai-Chin? Just for the purposes of trade, Mr. Prabhat feels that we should wait and negotiate from a position of strength, however long it may take. So he asks for your take on this.
Okay. The opening of Karakoram Pass is not linked with exchange of southern part of Aksai-Chin. It is a different subject itself. Karakoram Pass was closed in 1949 when China had occupied Xinjiang region. Till that time, it was a flourishing trade. Traders used to go from Ladakh and from that side to India. People in Ladakh still remember how they used to enjoy the goods from other side and the people. So this Karakoram Pass trade without linking with Aksai-Chin issue could be opened for mutual benefit. Both people of Ladakh and Xinjiang would be happy. I've been to Ladakh a number of times, and their people here still long to go across and trade. After the trade was stopped, it was one of the major occupation of people in Ladakh was trade with the Tibet and Xinjiang region. After the trade was stopped, people in Ladakh lost their livelihood. Agriculture is, at that time it was limited. Now with availability of water through canals and small irrigation channels, irrigation is much more than it used to be earlier. So I feel that Karakoram Pass, if it is open for trade, it has nothing to do with Aksai-Chin issue. It would be just trade between the two nations. But I also understand that at present, India-China relations are not suitable for this, as Ambassador Ashok Kant has mentioned. That is a fact. But as a scholar, my plea is to open a Karakoram Pass for trade for mutual benefit to people from both sides. Nothing to do with Aksai-Chin issue.
Yeah, actually.
So we have another question by Mr. Karanthura. He asks, can India invoke Tibet in its deliberations with China? If yes, how? And if not, why?
Yeah, I think Colonel Verma.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Certainly, sir. So Mr. Karanthura, he asks, can India use Tibet, invoke Tibet in its deliberations with China? If yes, then how? And if not, then why?
This opportunity was there with India when China has occupied Tibet or earlier. We lost this opportunity of helping Tibetans when the Chinese were occupying. At that time, I'm saying unofficially, I have no authentic proof, but that time army had stated that if a brigade is given to us to defend Lhasa, they would be able to protect protect at least the Lhasa garrison and also the His Holiness Residence Potala Palace. But Nehru, in his own wisdom, refused to spare even a brigade. Probably a brigade paradropped in Lhasa could have helped, and once some initiative was taken by India, it would have involved some Western countries also to support Lhasa. In fact, there is also a that when press people asked Great Britain, you are well aware of Tibet situation. Why you did not take any action? The reply of Great Britain, which I was that when India is not taking any action, India is not raising the issue of Tibet, then why should UK do it? Thank you.
Yeah, I think Anand Verma, I think, of course, it is interesting to read history, but now the reality on the ground has changed much. And even I'm not very sure whether even one of our brigades would have done the job at that time. But anyway, that is part of the history now. So Akshat, any more comments or questions on that?
None right now, sir. So if you would like to add to what Colonel Sapai has said.
No, I think I already mentioned that because you see, taking this playing Tibet card, it may be very popular to raise the issue, but I don't think that that unless we are in a position of strength, I don't think we can do much. Of course, now whatever we have to do, or we are, I don't know how much it is possible because Dalai Lama is getting old. So what will be his succession process? Can India do something? I think these are the things we need to think about and study and seriously discuss. Of course, China in all possibilities, they will bring in another boy as next Dalai Lama. So then what will be the position available to the Tibetans staying outside Tibet? And I think these are the future, some scholar have to take up seriously, and then only we can come up with some discussion and some points. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The floor is open. We welcome members of the audience to please raise their hands and ask their questions or present their observations. Sir, it would seem that we do not have any questions. I request you to please take the proceedings. Thank you.
I think if there is no more questions available, how much time we have with the Zoom, or we can conclude?
So we do have time till 4:30 p.m. That is another 30 minutes. However, in the event that we do not have any further questions, we can wrap up the session as is preferred.
Yeah, I think if Colonel Verma would like to add something, you are free now. You can add, and then we can come to a conclusion. Colonel Verma.
About the successor of His Holiness Dalai Lama, it's a very important issue, as His Holiness is now around 85 years of age, and we need leadership for Tibetans, leadership for our northern belt, Ladakh, Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, and they would. This requires lot of thinking and discussion with Dharamshala and people who are knowledgeable, and should not be left for nature to take its own course. This requires a serious issue, that who is going to take on the leadership. And as per the tradition, next Dalai Lama, when born, would be a 4, 5, 6 year old boy. And by the time he comes of age, the situation all around would have changed. So instead of waiting for next Dalai Lama to be born and then waiting for so many years, it requires a discussion by knowledgeable people with Dharamshala and other parties, and it should be discussed at the appropriate level. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Akshay, I think we had a good discussion, so I will not get into the summarizing or concluding it. Thank you, Colonel Verma, for raising the issues. Hope some of these outcomes can be followed later by other people who are involved in the issue. Thank you, Akshay. Now you can formally conclude. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. With this, we shall wrap up today's session. We thank Colonel Verma and Mr. Aksai for gracing today's session with their presence and for giving us their precious time. We would also like to extend our gratitude to the print for being a media partner for this seminar. The video of today's discussion shall be available on the ICS's YouTube channel. We would also like to welcome all of you to a special seminar being organized tomorrow on 14 September 2023, titled Interpreting China's Strategy on the Northern Borders. Further information can be found on the ICS website. You may also subscribe to our newsletter